Covert Operations Clone Troopers were an elite group of clone troopers who served in the Grand Army of the Republic during the Clone Wars. These clones were primarily assigned to do the dirty work of the Republic that most other clones would refuse and find unethical. The main task that these clone troopers were assigned to was to find and assassinate clone troopers who deserted the Grand Army of the Republic. So, who were the Covert Operations Clone Troopers and who did they report to? I'm going to break down exactly who the Covert Operations Clone Troopers were and the very unethical missions that they were assigned to.
And before we get into it, I just want to tell you guys about our private Discord, the private Star Force 1 exclusive Discord. It's only $7 a month and you'll get access to plenty of exclusive behind the scenes lore, analysis, tidbits, and you'll just have a place to discuss Star Wars lore with other like-minded people like me and like the others in the community. So if you're interested, check the link in the description down below.
So before we get into it, remember to subscribe for more awesome Star Wars lore content, and also remember to check out the join button, which was just activated on the channel for some awesome perks and a cool Palpatine badge. The Covert Operations Clone Troopers were regular troopers who were selected from the standard clone squads on Kamino. The Kaminoans looked for specific clones who showed that they had the potential to do dirty work and were not worried about performing immoral actions like assassinations, kidnappings, and torture. Yeah, these guys were the craziest clones. When chosen for the role, however, they were not informed that some of their missions and tasks would include assassinating their own brothers. Grand Army of the Republic deserters who had left the service of the Republic to live their own independent lives would be placed on a hit list, which would then be handed to the Covert Operations Troopers so that they could hunt down and execute every single member on the deserters list. Chilling stuff. Let me know down below if you think it was right or wrong for the Republic to send clones to assassinate their own brothers. Once chosen for the Covert Operations program, the clones would be trained by Null Arcs N10 and N5 in commando tactics and go through one of the most intense and rigorous training programs in the Grand Army of the Republic. After leaving the training program, the Covert Ops clones would be ready to do anything that the Grand Army of the Republic would ask of them, including some of the dodgiest and most questionable jobs. Covert Operations Clone Troopers served in squads of up to 3 men, often being placed in groups where each of their skills could be used in combination to obtain effective results on their covert missions. All covert clones had the option to pick between a standard DC-15S carbine blaster, and for those who preferred a heavier option, the DC-15A blaster. The armor of the Covert Operations clones was also coated with a specialized substance known as Reflect, which was a very advanced material that allows light to warp around it and to stop sensors from being able to detect it. The material was a light pink color and made it very difficult for scanners and radar to detect these clones as they were dropped into their target locations, allowing them to perform incredibly stealthy missions. The Covert Ops Trooper program was one of the most secretive in the entire Grand Army of the Republic, with their activities being kept secret from both the public and military records. Unlike other elite clone troopers such as the ARC Troopers or Clone Commandos, the Covert Operations Squads were not part of the official Republic Special Forces. The Republic Special Forces Brigade contained units like the Munilist 10, Delta Squad, Omega Squad, and the Ion Team, but purposely did not include the Covert Operations Troopers in order to maintain their secrecy. It's also very likely that the other clones within the Special Operations units would be very upset to realize that they were working with men whose job it is to hunt down and assassinate their own brothers. The Republic director of the Special Forces even denied that the Covert Operations Troopers existed at all, claiming that they were just a separatist myth created to sow distrust and chaos within the Republic. Because of this, the Covert Operations teams reported directly to the Supreme Chancellor for a long time. And I'm joined by a true expert on all things clones, Woof Woof Woof, to tell the sad story of one Covert Clone Trooper operation.
The most well-known operation that was conducted by the Covert Clone Troopers was on the planet Gaftakar, when Clone Troopers Maz and Alin were sent to assassinate ARC Trooper A30, nicknamed Sol, after he had deserted the Grand Army of the Republic to live a life of his own on the planet. Unfortunately for these two Covert Operations Troopers, the mission went horribly wrong. The two clones were hiding out at the home of ARC Trooper Sol, waiting for his return so they could stealthily assassinate him and leave the planet without being noticed. Unfortunately, however, Darman of the Omega Squad was also searching for Sol at the time, and happened to enter his house, where the two Covert Operations Troopers fired on him. This led to Darman killing both covert clones, purely to defend himself. Once the other clones began to hear about the situation and discover the true purpose of the Covert Ops clones, they became extremely disturbed, realizing that the Republic was sending assassins to kill its own men.
The Munilist 10 were an elite group of ARC Troopers that consisted of 2 Alpha ARC Troopers, 7 infantry clones with specialized training, and was led by ARC Trooper Fordo himself. ARC Trooper Fordo and the 2 Alpha ARC Troopers were trained by Jango Fett himself on Kamino, making them one of the most formidable combat squads in the Grand Army of the Republic. So how did this elite group of clones save the Republic and capture a major separatist leader? I'm going to break down exactly how the Munilist 10 saved the Republic and how they decimated the intergalactic banking clan. The first mission for the Munilist 10 came when they were deployed to the planet Munilist with the goal of destroying a separatist artillery cannon and capturing key officials from the intergalactic banking clan. They reported directly to General Obi-Wan Kenobi and were to keep him updated on the progress of the mission. The intergalactic banking clan were providing a significant amount of resources to the separatists, handing out funding for their war effort and funding the production of many warships to be used in the fight against the Republic. Chancellor Palpatine ordered the invasion of Munilist because he believed that capturing the headquarters of the intergalactic banking clan would deal a major blow to the separatists and leave them unable to provide funding for the rest of the war. Because Palpatine was obviously playing both sides of the war, this strategy was all part of his larger plan to end the Clone Wars and the Jedi Order later on. Despite some concerns from Master Yoda and Obi-Wan about whether or not he was ready, Anakin Skywalker was also appointed commander of the Republic Space Forces in the planet's orbit, finally giving him the military rank of commander. The Munilist 10 were well known within the Grand Army of the Republic as the best of the best. Each trooper within this group was an elite combatant and was chosen because they had proven themselves in previous battles and conflicts. Because of this status, the Grand Army of the Republic was happy to provide any weapon or piece of equipment asked for by the group, allowing them to be one of the most fierce fighting forces on the battlefield. The standard clone troopers of the group carried DC-15A blaster rifles, which were requested because they were the weapon that the troopers were most comfortable with. Some of the ARC troopers of the group chose to use Westar M5 blaster rifles, while ARC Trooper Fordo carried his modified DC-17 hand blasters. On top of this, the group also carried thermal detonators, heat signature detectors, a PLX-1 portable missile launcher, and droid poppers to aid them in any of the elite combat missions they were given. So once you've heard the story of how the Munilist 10 fared in the Battle of Munilist, remember to leave a comment down below telling me who your favorite member is. As the Munilist 10 were traveling towards their drop zone inside of a modified LAAT gunship, they were shot down by a B-1 battle droid with a rocket launcher, causing them to plunge towards the ground, where they eventually crash-landed in Harnaden City, the capital of Munilist. ARC Trooper Fordo, looking absolutely awesome, and all of his men managed to escape the wreckage of the crash without a scratch, but moments after they exited their fallen gunship, they were barraged by droid sniper fire from above. Unfortunately, CT-43002, one of the regular clones who made up the Munilist 10, was hit by droid snipers and killed instantly. 9 clones remain. In retaliation, Fordo then ordered 2 of his men to distract the droid snipers above, and another clone to scan the area for hidden droid enemies. Then, after swiftly scanning the buildings around the crash site, one of the ARC troopers used a PLX-1 portable missile launcher to destroy the ledges of the buildings that the droid snipers were standing on, sending them plummeting to the ground with a loud clank. Following this, the group was confronted by a separatist armored assault tank, which began firing on them, but one of the unidentified ARC lieutenants quickly sprung into action, popping open the tank and planting several high-powered blast charges inside, destroying the vehicle. This was absolutely awesome to see and just shows how elite this group of ARC troopers really were. After this, Fordo sent up a specialized commando recon droid, which was exclusively used by clone commandos and ARC troopers. The recon droid scanned the area and finally discovered the location of the firing artillery weapons, which was the main objective of the group. Fordo quickly opened up a hologram communication with General Kenobi and informed him that their target had been spotted. Obi-Wan then ordered the Munilist 10 to continue on phase 2 of the mission, which was to destroy the cannon. The Munes of the banking clan were deeply worried at this point, but there was absolutely nothing they could do, with the Republic forces quickly closing in and taking control of their capital city. The group then awesomely used grappling lines to move their way up the droid command center inside of the artillery station and destroy the droid control station where the weapon was being fired from with the same rocket launcher from earlier. After destroying the droid firing station, the group placed a large amount of high-power blast charges on the barrel and base of the weapon, priming it ready to blow, and permanently disabled the weapon. After realizing that their primary defenses had been disabled by the elite group of ARC troopers, the members of the intergalactic banking clan began to panic, realizing that they were left incredibly vulnerable. This obviously caused extreme distress for Count Dooku, because he realized that without the survival of the banking clan, the separatists would have no way to fund the production of new battle droids to continue the war. If Munilist was lost, the separatists would be severely weakened, saving the Republic from an extreme onslaught of droid forces on every one of the worlds under their control. The group eventually detonated the blast charges and destroyed the artillery cannons once and for all. Once the control tower and cannons were destroyed, Fordo and his men waited for the arrival of Obi-Wan Obi-Wan to assist them in making a final push for the Central Command Center, where the Intergalactic Banking Clan Council were monitoring the status of the invasion. Their goal was to capture the Central Command Center and take key Separatist leaders prisoner, therefore winning the battle and blocking the Banking Clan from continuing to fund the Separatist droid army for the time being. After Obi-Wan arrived on top of the operations tower to meet the elite ARC troopers, they moved to the Central Command Center of the Mun Council and blasted their way in through the ceiling. The ARC troopers glided their way down to the ground with grappling lines and opened fire on the droid security inside. Once Obi-Wan hit the floor, he destroyed multiple droidekas, while Fordo captured Sand Hill, who you will remember from Revenge of the Sith. And also, he was the son of Darth Plagueis' good friend, Lash Hill. Obi-Wan offers the Mun a chance to unconditionally surrender, but he is interrupted by the awesome bounty hunter, Dirge. The Munalists 10 open fire on Dirge, and Kenobi is eventually able to kill him, but not after having to use every trick in the book to stop him from regenerating his lost limbs. After destroying Dirge and capturing the leadership of the Intergalactic Banking Clan, the Republic had all but assured themselves victory on Munalist, and therefore putting a stop to the funding of the Separatist droid army, at least for now. At this point in the war, the Republic was in one of its weakest periods, meaning that if this attack on Munalist had failed, the Republic would be in serious danger of collapsing. But Darth Sidious would of course never let that happen anyway. Having surrendered, Sand Hill was taken into custody by the Republic, and the majority of the battle droids on Munalist were deactivated. Sand Hill of course later escaped from Republic imprisonment, but the damage was done to the reputation and morale of the Banking Clan. With most of the leadership of the Banking Clan put on public trial, their allegiance to the Separatists became common knowledge, potentially endangering many deals and partnerships that were currently in the works. Because of his status as a wanted criminal within the Republic, Hill was not able to return to Munalist immediately and was instead forced to roam the galaxy aboard General Grievous's ship with the rest of the Separatist Council, hoping to avoid capture and further imprisonment by the Republic and the Jedi. After making an incredible impact at the Battle of Munalist and saving the Republic from the tight grip of the Mun Banking Clan, the group was sent to the planet Hypori to rescue surviving Jedi after the Battle of Hypori. Fordo and his men scanned for signs of life on the planet, eventually discovering that Ki-Adi-Mundi, who had been disarmed by General Grievous. Grievous was about to deal the killing blow to Ki-Adi-Mundi when Fordo and his men opened fire on him, ultimately saving his life. Unfortunately, many of Fordo's men were killed by Grievous during the mission, but the rescue of Ki-Adi-Mundi was ultimately a success. For his brave actions at the Battle of Munalist, combined with his heroic rescue of Mundi on Hypori, Fordo was awarded the prestigious Mandalorian J-Guys. J-Guys were awarded for the most stunning acts of bravery during the war, an accolade that Captain Rex also achieved. So that is how the Munalist 10 saved the Republic from the rapidly increasing droid production and expanding influence of the Separatist Alliance through capturing the leadership of the Intergalactic Banking Clan. Clone Assassin Troopers were an elite group of clone troopers who were recruited by Supreme Chancellor Palpatine near the end of the Clone Wars, with the specific goal of eliminating Jedi opponents after the events of Order 66. These assassin clones were trained to defeat Jedi using a rare hand-to-hand combat technique designed to exploit the weaknesses of Force users. So who were the clone assassins, and why were they taken to the Jedi Temple during Anakin's slaughter of the younglings? I'm going to break down exactly what the Clone Assassin Division was and the unique weaponry that they used. Near the end of the Clone Wars, a new division of clone troopers was specially ordered and recruited by Supreme Chancellor Palpatine called the Clone Assassin Troopers. The Assassin Trooper Division was created by Palpatine through legitimate legislation in the Senate, which was passed by a majority of senators without question. Palpatine claimed that these Assassin Troopers were essential to protecting the government of the Republic and the Chancellor himself in case the Jedi ever decided to rebel against the Republic or try to assassinate the Supreme Chancellor. Yes, he literally said that in public on the Senate floor. Because Palpatine was one of the most popular chancellors the Republic had seen in quite some time, through his continued success in the Clone Wars, the Senate were very happy to continue passing any legislation he brought forward, regardless of the consequences. It's actually crazy how open Palpatine was able to be with this division. The Jedi obviously weren't too happy with the creation of the Clone Trooper Assassin Division, but were forced to accept it as part of the structure of the Republic military or risk losing their political power, which of course Force was one of the major weaknesses of the Jedi Order towards its end. Systems to eliminate members of military organizations should they go rogue or commit treason already existed in almost every other military in the galaxy, so the Jedi also believed that this legislation was merely created to show the public that their elected leader, Palpatine, was taking the steps necessary to ensure that the Jedi did not gain too much power. They never believed that these clones would actually be used against them. Once the Clone Assassin Bill was passed, Palpatine initially only sent the Clone Assassin troopers along with the Covert Operations troopers to assist in the killing of clones who deserted from the Grand Army of the Republic. They obviously weren't authorized to eliminate any Jedi targets at this point, so Palpatine was forced to use them on clone defectors, political opponents, and separatist leadership. After the Elite Assassin Division was created, Sidious and the Grand Army of the Republic leadership began to gear up the new breed of assassin troopers, making sure that they were equipped with the best possible armor and weaponry for their specific mission objectives. They were outfitted in the standard Phase 2 clone armor with only some very slight modifications to make it easier for them to perform acrobatic maneuvers and advanced martial arts movements. The clone assassin armor was usually a light blue and white color, but some incredibly skilled and high-ranking clone assassins also wore darker Phase 2 armor, making them extremely difficult to spot in fast-paced hand-to-hand combat, which of course is what they specialized in. Unlike regular clone troopers, the clone assassins did not carry blasters as their primary weapons, instead carrying a highly enhanced vibroblade in each arm directly attached to their elbows. These vibroblades extended the reach of the clone assassin using them and significantly increased the lethality of their attacks. When not being used, the assassin trooper could fold the vibroblade back into a neutral position so that it would not obstruct any routine activities of the trooper. If a clone assassin ever found himself in a dangerous position, he could rapidly activate the vibroblades at only a moment's notice, sharply swinging them out, locking them into the attack position before lunging at his opponent. The clone assassin troopers also often wore karmas, which were attached to a tactical belt that held 2 storage pouches, allowing for the assassin to take tracking equipment or any other objects that may be useful in assassinating their target. The karmas were also sometimes used to conceal specialized equipment used on covert assassination missions, even to hide classified materials or objects from other clone troopers who did not have the required clearance. Some very specialized clone assassins also carried modified sniper rifles so that they could execute their targets from a distance without anyone being able to witness the assassination take place. The clone assassin troopers who were selected for this role were the best of the best and had to show their superiors that they were well and truly above the rest of the men selected for the assassin program. Finally, the assassin troopers did also carry DC-17 blaster pistols with them, but they were only used as a backup secondary weapon, with most clone assassins always preferring to use their unique martial arts style in combination with vibroblades to decimate their opponents. Now you know exactly what armor and equipment the clone assassins used. Make sure to let me know down in the comments below which special clone units had the best armor out of Shadow Troopers, Covert Operations Troopers, and the Assassins. Because these clone assassins were commissioned and created for the sole purpose of going into combat with Jedi on equal terms, they were trained to use the martial art known as Teras Kasi, which you might remember from Solo, a Star Wars story. Maul was extremely skilled in this rare martial art and passed down his knowledge to Dryden Voss, who in turn passed his skills down to Kira. The immense training that the assassin troopers went through in learning this martial art enabled them to develop extreme speed and mental fortitude, being able to anticipate enemy movements before they even happened, very similar to Jedi foresight, but without the use of the Force. The fighting style also emphasized techniques that would successfully counter most Force users and leave them on an equal playing field with the assassin clones. The clone assassins used their vibroblades in conjunction with this fighting form, making them almost unbeatable by non-Force sensitives in hand-to-hand combat. The absolutely crazy thing is that the Jedi allowed their freshly graduated Padawans to fight against these clone assassin troopers as a method for improving both of their skills. The Padawans and the clone assassins were able to increase their dexterity, mental capacity, and reflexes greatly through these practice battles, with the Jedi Order believing that they would fight side by side with these troopers on the front lines eventually. It's absolutely stunning to realize that the Jedi were training their own assassins for combat. This clearly shows just how deep Palpatine's manipulations went and how effectively he was able to use the Sith shrine below the Jedi Temple to cloud the foresight and wisdom of the Jedi Order. The clone assassins were trained so well through this program that they were easily able to dodge or parry away most strikes from melee weapons, including lightsabers. Awesomely, through spending so much time around the Jedi Order and its Padawans, the clone trooper assassins became resistant to Jedi mind tricks and were able to hold them off without even flinching. A small squad of clone assassins could easily take down a Jedi Knight after their training, and even more easily a Padawan, but they stood no no chance when coming up against a Jedi Master. It would have been very unfortunate for Anakin if he never fell to the dark side and had to face one of these guys. So after Order 66 was called by Darth Sidious and Darth Vader was made his apprentice, Vader and his Legion of Clones, the 501st, were sent to the Jedi Temple to eliminate all Jedi inside, including the younglings. As Operation Nightfall began, clone assassin snipers were placed around the Jedi Temple, while the regular clone assassins were sent to eliminate the remaining Jedi on the ground floors and the council chamber areas of the temple. During the raging battle inside between the clones and the Jedi, Darth Vader assigned a squad of 6 clone assassin troopers to protect the Jedi Temple Communication Center, where he had activated a beacon that transmitted a message to all the Jedi around the galaxy, telling them to return to the temple. A large garrison of clone troopers were also sent to reinforce the clone assassin troopers inside of the Jedi Communication Center and to kill any Jedi who returned upon hearing the transmission. After hearing the transmissions for themselves, however, Master Yoda and Obi-Wan returned to the Jedi Temple in hopes of stopping the false message. Once they arrived inside of the communications room, Obi-Wan and Master Yoda were cornered by the squad of clone assassins that Vader had stationed there, but they were able to successfully defeat all of them. After killing the clone assassin troopers, Obi-Wan replaces Anakin's false transmission signal with a new message telling all surviving Jedi that the time to return to the temple has passed, which the full message can be seen in Star Wars Rebels. After Order 66, clone assassin troopers were mostly stationed on Coruscant to protect high-ranking Imperial officials, but were also very frequently sent to hunt down and assassinate Imperial traitors, defectors, and others that were not important enough for Darth Vader himself to be sent to hunt down. So that is the story of the most dangerous elite clone trooper division, the Clone Assassin Troopers. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more like this one, remember to smash the subscribe button down below and hit the join button for exclusive behind the scenes images and project updates. Clone Blaze Troopers were a specialized unit of clone troopers who provided support to regular clone forces on the front lines of the battlefield when enemy defenses could simply not be cracked through conventional military tactics. They were often called in to incinerate enemy front lines with their wrist-mounted flamethrowers, allowing the Republic forces to advance with ease. So who were the Clone Blaze Troopers and why were they so effective at breaking through enemy checkpoints? I'm going to break down exactly what the Clone Blaze Troopers division was and the incredibly unique tactics that they used. The Clone Blaze Troopers division was created on Kamino on the orders of Republic High Command. Republic Command, along with the Jedi Council, realized that the overwhelming amount of droid forces that were able to be placed on an enemy front line was simply too difficult for regular clone troopers to break through. Many dark and dirty sieges ravaged the clone forces across the galaxy in the early part of the war, but they were unable to make much progress past their initial landing points because they simply could not break the Separatist defense lines. For this reason, a new infantry support unit was created and placed under the Clone Jet Trooper division of the Grand Army of the Republic. Each Clone Blaze Trooper carried an extremely large and heavy Mandalorian jetpack with significant modifications on their backs. Although these huge jetpacks were difficult to control, each Clone Blaze Trooper became extremely proficient at using them because they were each personally trained by Mandalorian warriors on Kamino, who of course were well known for their great skill in using jetpacks. Every Blaze Trooper was also outfitted with 2 large flamethrowers mounted firmly to their wrists. These flamethrowers were also based off the traditional Mandalorian flamethrowers, but again were heavily modified to fit the specific needs of the Grand Army of the Republic. As with their jetpacks, the Mandalorian trainers on Kamino were also used to teach the Blaze Troopers how to properly use their extremely dangerous weapon because they were of course experts in that area. Because of the scorching heat that radiated from the modified flamethrowers, the Blaze clones were forced to use an extremely thick version of the Phase 2 clone armor mixed with a specialized heat-resistant material to prevent the troopers from burning themselves. The armor was also made extremely bulky so that it could be used to overpower enemies in close quarters combat. The 3 main groups that the Grand Army of the Republic pulled soldiers from to join this division were the clones that were a little bit crazier than their brothers like Hardcase, those who love heavy weaponry like Heavy, and finally specially modified clone brutes who were stronger and more reckless than their brothers. Someone like Wrecker from the Bad Batch would be a perfect fit for the Clone Blazers division. When the Clone Blaze Troopers were first moved into active duty for the Grand Army of the Republic, they were tasked with blazing through enemy lines with their immensely powerful flamethrowers and clearing out any debris or blockages left behind by the enemy as they escaped. If the Separatist droid army retreated and blocked off the path where they escaped, clone commanders or Jedi generals would call the Blaze Troopers in to incinerate the blockage, allowing the Republic forces to advance. Let me know down below if you want to see more appearances from these awesome Blaze Troopers in the Bad Batch series, which is coming to Disney Plus in 2021. When the Blaze Troopers weren't actively assigned to help out with clearing the way for other clone legions, they were sometimes called upon to serve as clone executioners who specialized in hand-to-hand combat and large bursts of motion. They would often attack ground-based enemies by using their jetpacks to fly slightly above the opponent's reach, crushing their heads with a swift punch from the air, or even putting the target into a tight bear hug in an attempt to suffocate them. The crazy thing is, if the bear hug wasn't enough to kill the opponent, they would slam them to the ground, precisely pinning them down with their tough metal boots, and use their flamethrowers to burn their faces off, painfully killing them. Yeah, you can see why these guys had to be chosen from the crazier group of clones. Throughout the Clone Wars, the clone Blaze Troopers were called in to serve at many infamous battles on planets like Renvar, Mygeeto, Utapau, and even Coruscant during the kidnapping of the Chancellor. After Order 66 was called by Darth Sidious, the Blaze Troopers were deployed into the Jedi Temple during the events of Operation Nightfall, where they fought against Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Yoda as they made their way to look at the security recordings. The clone Blazers also assisted Anakin Skywalker in his slaughter of the Jedi inside of the temple. The clone Blaze Troopers later went on to become the Imperial Zero-G Assault Troopers and the Imperial Space Troopers, but the clones who once served the Republic were quickly phased out in favor of natural-born human soldiers so that the events of Order 66 could not be repeated on Palpatine himself during the Galactic Civil War. So that is the story of the Republic's most aggressive clone troopers, the clone Blaze Troopers. Commander Levitt, or Commander Tactful as he was also called, was a regimental leader of the 35th Infantry during the Clone Wars. Commander Levitt served under Jedi General Etain Termakan during the war and was deployed at many extremely gruesome and bloody battles throughout the war. So I'm going to break down exactly who Commander Levitt was and why he deserted the Grand Army of the Republic to become a farmer. Just like every other clone trooper, Commander Levitt was born on Kamino in the year 32 BBY and took the name Levitt during his training under the Mandalorian warriors while there. After displaying incredible bravery and fortitude during his training with the Mandalorians, he was selected for a specialized training program which would eventually allow him to progress to the rank of Regimental Commander. After graduating from the grueling training program on the rainy world of Kamino, he was selected by the Jedi High Council to be placed in charge of the 35th Infantry under the leadership of General Etain Termakan. Shortly after being released from Kamino, he was deployed to the Battle of Chilura with General Termakan, leading the 35th Infantry into the fierce conflict. His main objective on the planet was to ensure that the civilians were safely and quickly evacuated off-world, fulfilling a promise made to the local creatures there prior. Unfortunately, the human civilians on the planet were absolutely disgusted that a distant military power like the Republic had arrived on their world and forced them to leave their homes and property, staging a massive resistance against the clone troopers. Because of this, most of the human colonists on the planet refused to leave, and Commander Levitt was forced to use the full power of the 35th Infantry on the local population, holding them with cold metallic blasters up against their heads, fingers on the triggers, forcing them to leave the planet. Now, this move from the Republic was of course unbelievably controversial, so let me know in the comments how you feel about the Republic forcing colonists to evacuate a planet with blasters pointed towards their heads. It's certainly not the Jedi way, but General Termakan was forced to do this because of the orders given to her by Republic High Command, so let me know down below what you think. The human civilians of course retaliated harshly, resulting in the deaths of many of Commander Levitt's men, including the injuries of Troopers Ven and Beck. Ven was operating an E-Web heavy repeating blaster, but was wounded when a human civilian hit him with an artillery round, horrifically damaging his flesh. Commander Levitt found Ven lying unconscious near his turret and tried to resuscitate him without success. Although Levitt and his brothers could not find a pulse on the trooper, thankfully General Termakan was able to sense his life energy through the Force, allowing him to be sent to medical care swiftly, saving his life. Such a tragic near-death story. I'm really glad he made it through though. Following this, General Etain Termakan continued to assist in the forced evacuation of the planet and did manage to get many of the human civilians off-world, but killed many of them during the process because she felt that the deaths of her men weren't justified. Again, this is a very grey area, so let me know how you feel about a Jedi General coming to a planet and killing civilians despite them not wanting to leave. Fortunately, Levitt and General Termakan were eventually able to complete the evacuation of Chilura and sustained no more casualties on either side, making a somewhat successful mission with some very big skeletons in the closet for both sides. Following the bloody mission on Chilura, Commander Levitt and his 35th Infantry were swiftly moved to the Battle of Gaftakar, where they were deployed to assist Arden Skarada and the Omega Squad to help gain control of the system and capture the city of Iat from the Separatists. While there, ARC Trooper Sul was deployed to the Gaftakar system to help train the local rebel forces on the planet along with Commander Levitt. This system allowed Saul and the 35th to pass their training down through the hundreds of thousands of rebel fighters on Gaftakar in an extremely short time, rapidly preparing them for the increasing threat of the Separatists. Shortly after implementing the program, however, Saul went missing on the planet, being thought to have deserted the Grand Army. Because of this, the Republic disgustingly sent 2 covert operations troopers to the planet to assassinate ARC Trooper Saul for his betrayal. Once word of his disappearance reached Commander Levitt and the Omega Squad on the planet, they quickly dispatched Darman to search Saul's apartment, where he encountered the 2 covert operations troopers who believed that he was Saul, leading them to try to assassinate him. This action absolutely disgusted Darman, who was furious that the Republic would send clones to kill their own brothers. Following this shocking revelation, Levitt and the 35th stayed focused on their mission to capture the system and continued with their objective. I have a full video on the shocking clone covert operations troopers on the channel, so make sure you click the card on screen now if you want to see that. Eventually, 5 of the Omega Squad was injured, and one of Commander Levitt's men, Sergeant Tell, was able to assist him in getting urgent medical attention, forming a very close relationship with the Omega Squad and Levitt. Eventually, the combined forces of the two were successful in defeating the Separatist forces on Gaftakar, leaving minimal casualties for the Republic. Following this, the tragic day of Order 66 took place, and instead of choosing to obey the horrific order, Commander Levitt decided to desert the Grand Army of the Republic. Levitt quickly contacted freighter pilot Nyreen Volon, who he discovered was smuggling rogue clones out of the Grand Army of the Republic to Kiri Marut, a location on Mandalore which was the home to Clan Skarada. Nyreen Volon was also able to smuggle the body of Commander Levitt's fallen Jedi General Etain Termukan after she died attempting to save a clone trooper's life after jumping between him and a panicking Jedi Padawan's lightsaber blade, severing her spine and brutally killing her instantly. Many of the Skarada clan were left in tears after her death, and some even on the verge of madness because of the deep connection that they had with her, including the fact that Darman and Termukan had a child together called Venku. Not long after, Levitt and the Yayak Squad, who I also have a video on, which is in a card on screen now, joined the Skarada community on Mandalore and undertook numerous jobs like carpentry and farming. Levitt himself loved farming and absolutely loved the open space that was provided at their new home, free from fighting, conflict, and battle. Commander Levitt and the Yayak Squad were able to understand farming and carpentry because of the numerous books that they had read, helping them to truly hone their skills. Eventually, Commander Levitt, along with the Yayak Squad, became the primary food and supply providers to the Clan Skarada community, living a prosperous life. Levitt was actually able to start his own farmstead in the Skarada community, further increasing their productivity and living the life that he truly enjoyed. The Skarada farming settlement was located in the dense Veshok forests of Mandalore's northern hemisphere, which was surrounded by a vast trail of green trees and wide blue lakes. The remote settlement also became the home to 2 Jedi fugitives, Padawan Telisabeth Scout and an extremely rare Kaminoan Jedi Master, Kina Ha. Kina Ha lacked the hatred for imperfection that was typical in her species, allowing her to look past the flaws of many. Because she was the only Force user of her entire race, she was also considered to be a severe threat by the scientists of her dark, rainy world, leading her to leave the planet rather than face the constant hostility. By the end of the Clone Wars, she had shockingly already been living for over 3,000 years, seeing many events like the Mandalorian Wars and the Jedi Civil War. The Mandalorians and clones that lived with Kina Ha after Order 66 saw her as an ancient lady of royalty and were stunned that she went against what most Kaminoans were like. While most Kaminoans can only tolerate water worlds with very dark skies and almost no sun, Kina Ha absolutely loved the sun and sat outdoors with the rest of Clan Skarada at their remote location. But she did have to wear a cap at all times outdoors. Unlike the rest of her species, she was also known to have a sense of humor. So that is the full story of Commander Levitt, the clone commander who fought through many of the war's most gruesome battles, eventually going on to work with Clan Skarada as a farmer. Let me know down below if you're happy that the clone commandos of the Yayak Squad and Levitt were able to find peace after the war, instead of being forced to continue serving for the Imperial military. Thanks so much for watching, really hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to smash that like button if you enjoyed. Cheers guys, hope to see you in the next one.